All right, so today I'm with Giovanni Buda, also known as Obzrvr. We're at his studio here in Hamilton, Ontario. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great.
Good. Good. I'm excited to have you on. Love the quality of the work and the work that you and Duffy have been putting out. I wanted to just get started by asking about your name or your handle, like Obzrvr.
Yeah.
Any specific meaning behind that?
Yeah, so Obzrvr like kind of came as like a reflection to my past and like growing up in like a small town. I was kind of never really like the loud kid or like the person who's very at the forefront. Kind of felt like I was very at the background of a lot of what I was doing. Was like a observer of what I am. So going into college and like growing up and going into the glass program was kind of more of a reflection as to where I wanted to be and an acknowledgement of what was. So it's not necessarily to forget the past, but to acknowledge and to realize and then to grow past that. So
Definitely.
It's something that is a reminder and like a constant, a baseline for me. So I'm always kind of grounded in what I'm doing and I can move forward.
That's awesome. What are some of your hobbies outside of glass blowing?
I really like video games. I like to ride my bike. Music's great. I like to collect soundtracks for vinyl soundtracks. I have like the old original pressing of the Star Wars episode 4 and episode 6. I need to get number 5, but it's always a hunt.
That's awesome. So we're gonna get into more of your career background in terms of glass blowing. How long have you been blowing glass for?
So in October it will be 5 years.
5 years? Yes. Awesome. So that would be in 2014?
Yes.
Cool. Where did you learn the basic skills of flame working?
So at Sheridan, when I took the glass program there, it was Brad Sherwood who was the head of the head of the flame working department. He basically just taught me all the basics, and then a lot of the older years too, to be honest, actually helped kind of guide me in my work and like little tips, because Brad was very like scientific based and not a lot very pipe oriented. So some of the other people who were interested in pipe making in the older years kind of passed on some of that knowledge to me.
Nice. In like the first year, what were some of your biggest challenges?
I say like probably just like the really basics, probably the most important things are like just understanding how the medium works, because it's really strange. Like glass wants to move. It's almost like you're manipulating water, but the way that you manipulate it is with heat. So it's like, it's a really strange combination of like liquid, fluid state and solid things that are like, just getting a handle on how the glass actually like flows and moves and connects is probably the hardest thing, aside from like even turning, and like that's a really huge thing too. Is like you need to keep yourself rotating your pieces evenly, consistently in the same spot, because every little thing that you do wrong will present itself in your final work. If you leave your piece in one spot too long, that spot will get hot more than the rest of it. When you blow it out, it'll be uneven. You need to really, really, really focus on these basic fundamentals that have such a huge impact. It's like, it's learning to walk before you run kind of thing, right? So I'd say probably those two, just understanding the medium and how to work it properly, were the hardest things.
Definitely. What influenced you to work with glass as a medium as opposed to maybe another? Yeah,
so I just kind of wanted to move out of what I was doing currently, because I was in UX and UI design, like just doing like interfaces for like phone apps and like websites and shit, and it wasn't like, I really wanted something that was hands-on.
Yeah.
And I was getting interested in pipes, and I saw the opportunity for pipes that like the scene was growing, and it was something that people were making a living off of, and having the glass at Sheridan was like, okay, maybe this is something I can get into. I went to talk to the prof about it, and like I wanted to originally do like a double major, and like kind of really like, I guess I'd probably spread myself a little thin there. So then he gave me the opportunity to just switch in halfway through this first semester. And just from there, it was like, I really loved what pipes were. I've always been very like hands-on, like very good with what I can create with like just involving myself with the medium. So I knew if I dedicated myself to glass, I could really try and make it work.
Yeah. Who were some of your favorite glass blowers when you were like just discovering pipes and such?
They were definitely, Meek Evans is probably always just gonna be like the top. Like it's such a huge inspiration. More like Meek Evans, probably Banjo. Salt's a huge inspiration. Salt, just the range of knowledge that he has and the color, and like Banjo just for the complexity of like, similar to Mika Evans with just the large, elaborate, complex structures that they were able to create is super inspiring to me.
Definitely. Were you always artistic?
Yes, yeah, I've always loved to do painting, drawing, sculpting, woodworking. I remember in my garage I'd make like little like wooden knives and shit, and like make like little stupid weapons. Is hilarious, but it would really like, it got me into like creating and like just making stuff. And I've always like, I took art all the way through high school. Like I always like when there was art class and like and anything, I was like, this is the fucking day.
That's awesome.
It was really cool.
What kind of things were you like painting or sculpting? Like anything specific?
Nothing really too specific. Mostly what the curriculum is kind of pointing towards. I like got really into tagging in like the early years of college. So like that's where a lot of like my like skull motifs came from, is like just drawing, practicing tagging, and like doing like one-liners and stuff like that. I was very inspired by like Wild Style. Was like really awesome little film. Like I know it's super old, but when I found it on Netflix, I was like, oh, this is crazy cool. Yeah, it was, and it's just like a huge inspiration. Like a lot of the graffiti styles and like colorways, and like I have mad respect for that kind of stuff. It's really amazing.
Cool. Would you ever incorporate maybe like some artistic sculpture in your work, or do you like to keep it scientific?
Yeah, so I like to kind of keep with like I don't know how to say it, like I guess like a kind of aesthetic, I guess. Like a lot of my like bigger elaborate pieces kind of stem from drawings, like simple line drawings that were kind of really interconnected. Sculpture, I guess I like sculpture in like my own sense, in the sense that like I want to create things in my own form. I don't necessarily want to recreate other things through sculpture. I want to create new objects through sculpture, so it might not necessarily be the typical method of sculpting.
Cool.
Yeah.
Definitely. What would you say the difference is between seeing the YouTube or Instagram demonstrations as opposed to live demos? Would you say the live demos are much more beneficial, or they're kind of similar?
I would say they're very like they have their own right, I'd say, but in-person demos are almost always going to be better because you have that interaction. You can ask questions. You could always have like things happen on the fly that you aren't expecting. When you have a video, it's very like set in stone. This is what is here. This is the information provided, and there's nothing more. When you have an in-person demo, you could ask questions. You can get involved. You could do more. Like you could.
You see a person fixing a mistake that might have been made at the time.
There's opportunities that are presented that aren't there in the video. So it's almost always going to be better if you have it in person, but videos are also still amazing.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. How long would you say it took you to transition from a beginner to advanced glass blower?
Probably about 2 or 3 years, I'd say. Like I really started small and like really tried to flush out like my basics before I kind of worked myself into the more advanced things. And I'd say about 2 or 3 years. About the 3-year mark, I think I had my first order. And I think I'm about that.
Definitely nice. A lot of people are entering the game now kind of just to capitalize. I see it a lot in the US. A lot of people just getting up there, and because they're getting a lot of Instagram followers, they're selling a lot of work, and they're not putting out the best quality. And they might be taking similar designs, maybe inspired off others' works, but they're not giving credit where credit's due. How would you feel? How would you express your opinion about that?
So I would say to really respect each other's boundaries. If you would like to grow a community in a positive light, there needs to be respect. There needs to be like, okay, this guy is doing that, I'm gonna do something different. Like if you just go and blatantly like rip off somebody, how could you ever expect to like have them as a peer, like have respect from people? It's like people work really, really, really hard to carve out their own like, niche in the market. And when somebody comes along and just kind of, just doesn't care and just takes things and like without giving any credit, even if you do give credit to an extent, it's not really the greatest, but like people who just like will take and not give credit, it's really disrespectful. And it on a personal level, it's like, you work so hard to get these things, for people to just disrespect that, it's like there's no tolerance for that kind of stuff. It's like it just kind of shows your true character, it shows what you're about, it shows your morals, and it's really telling of who you are and when you put that out there, then word gets around, people might not want to work with you, people might have different opinions on it, but in general, it's like if you really want to grow a community, you need to have respect, you need to have boundaries. and you need to like want to do something that is your own. You can't just piggyback off of other people.
Do you have a favorite piece that you've ever made, and why is it so memorable?
I'd probably say I'd say it's probably one of the pieces in the Genesis series, probably number 2. Is like the largest piece that I've made to date. Even to be honest, till now, it's probably one of the largest pieces. It is like just a crazy big, like huge chamber, a lot of crazy wrapping around pipes. It was just like trying to assemble all of this on like on such a large piece was just like a daunting task for me at the time, and it was in I believe it was towards the end of it was in 4th year when I was making my thesis. And that's a funny thing too, they were part of my college thesis, so it's like
definitely memorable.
Part of my thesis. Yeah. It's so baffling to me even. But it was great. It was like, it's the one that I ended up keeping. It was the one that was flawed, but it was like probably the hardest struggle I've had in a piece. I think I remember I spent like 45 minutes on just making this like tiny little curve onto the joint wall. It's like, it won't fucking go properly, what the fuck? And it just, it was great. It was a struggle, but it was like, it's a memorable one.
That's awesome. What are some of your favorite colors to work with?
I really like a lot of striking colors. Transparent colors are great for me. I'm very about like function, so like transparents that still like add color, but can still allow you to see the function in the work. Is like really my favorite kind of ones to work with. If anything, like amber purple is a really great go-to. But yeah, there's always new colors being made all the time. Like a lot of the greasy stuff is really beautiful. So like maybe it'll change.
Yeah, for sure. What is your favorite thing about creating glass art?
I'd say the challenge. Like it's challenged me like no other medium has before. There's so many factors and variables that you have to consider, and like and if you like even for a second forget one thing or just neglect to do one part or one step, like the entire piece will just break. You really ride like a line with it. It's very, very strict, but I love it. It's something that you could always keep learning from. There's always new information you can gain. Like never stop learning with it. Yeah,
definitely. How would you describe your signature style?
I'd say like not really having a style almost is almost my signature. Like I really love to switch things up and change and evolve and like never be stagnant. Like even within series that I produce, like the Sentinel series, each one is subtly different than the other. I never want to make a piece that is exactly the same as the last. I find it to be a little boring, to be honest. Like I want people when they buy a piece from you to find that they have a piece that is unique, a piece that is their own, and like something that is genuinely from me. Yeah. Like I really want my creativity to shine through, and I really want that to be like the focus of what the piece is.
Definitely. What does the process of coming up with a new design look like? And what kind of inspires you? Yeah,
so generally through sketching, generally through like seeing what is going on with other pieces. Like if there's like elements of things, like I'm very heavily influenced currently by contrabasso, so like I'll try and use some of the aspects like the top chamber, but I'll try and do it in my own kind of way where like I'll set it up differently or I'll use it in a different aspect and kind of make my own shapes with it. But generally from like starting from sketching to just kind of brainstorming on the go, like really intuitive based kind of making. Like a lot of the sculptural pieces that I made at Sheridan were like, I have a general kind of idea, but as I go, the piece kind of develops and grows as I'm making it. It isn't necessarily a set in stone kind of, can really kind of go any which way.
What are some changes that you're seeing within the Canadian glass industry right now?
I'd say that it's definitely growing. It has a lot of room to grow. I think that people are coming out of the woodworks and like kind of being more present now. There's a lot of new blowers coming into the scene, which is good. But just finding that right information is probably the hardest part around here. So I think that if you're an aspiring glassblower and getting into it now and becoming part of the scene, really look for that information and really try to educate yourself on like what is happening so that you can help grow this community in a positive way.
And how do you hope to put yourself into the development of the Canadian glassblowing industry? Yeah,
so I would really like for my like dedication to craft and quality to really shine through. I really want people to aspire to like make things as good as they can. I don't want people to say that's good enough, because if you say that's good enough, it's not good enough. You need to really, really be focused. Like if you want to be at the top of the industry, you have to be concerned about these things, and you need to really pay attention and like be careful of what you're doing. and take care. Like take care of what you're doing. Like don't just be like, oh, I put on a piece and then, oh, it might be okay. Like just take the time. Like it's an extra 15 minutes, sure, but in the long run, you'll find that your success is far greater than just cutting corners initially.
Would you say your customers are noticing that? Your collectors are noticing that difference between your
Definitely.
pieces and the quality?
I would say so. And it is something that I was a little concerned about initially, but people do really seem to respond to quality, and it's something that I think is really important too, especially if you want to have a long career in what you're doing. To always be putting out your best work is really important.
Definitely. All right, dude. Well, that's all the questions I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.